Who's made the biggest mistake this year, and why is it me deciding to paint Taylor Swift's album, The Life of a Showgirl? I've always been a big Taylor Swift fan, and when this album came out, I was quite excited when I heard it was a mix of like folklorian lyrics with a 1989 beat. I feel like the album delivered a slightly different on that. I knew it was gonna be a challenge because, I mean, you have a few things here. You have the text, her face, which is one of the most the most photographed face in the world now that Queen Elizabeth's dead. And then you have the text, and then you have the cutouts, which when I went into this painting, I didn't know how I was gonna handle the text or the cutouts. I knew it was something I was gonna figure out later on. There was no escaping any of the glitter and sequins and Taylor Swift all over my feed, and I just had to go ahead and ruin it all by making a painting focused on her face that I wanted to scream at. And if you can't tell here, I didn't use a ruler to create my grid, which is a little hint of what's gonna happen in the future. I cried because my grid fucked up the face. I ended up painting the teal background off camera, but here we are ready to go into her skin tones. I'm a little scared to start this painting because I just know that this is gonna be a massive feat with Taylor Swift's face and knowing that it's one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. Now, if I don't get this right, it's just gonna all be off. I start off with mixing a good skin tone with white, yellow ochre, a little bit of cadmium red. I think I use a tiny bit of burnt sienna, and moving to lay those initial highlights down. I quickly go into mixing the skin tone that's gonna be under the water, which I realized that the water is a nice mix of phthalo blue and yellow ochre. I feel like that really captures the teal that I needed when I didn't own teal, and I was like, well, we're just gonna have to figure this out. The thing with painting a skin tone that might be different than what your eye is used to seeing, such as, you know, an arm being underwater, is you kind of have to full send it with the colors. And then once everything's filled in, then you can look at it with a new eye and be like, okay, this works, this doesn't. I need to, like, this is actually way too green versus, okay, this green makes it look like we're under the water. Online, I saw a lot of criticisms about this album cover saying, A, doesn't look like Taylor Swift's face because she doesn't have her classic bang. B, why is she sitting in dirty bathtub water? And C, the cutouts and text were just messy and not planned and going against every single graphic design rule. Carving out the skin tone and body did make me go a little insane trying to see what actually the colors were and what I needed to lay down versus just what was working and what wasn't. I sometimes have a hard time with skin tones and people and faces, so I was going through it. And I just was pushing through though. I didn't want to give up, I wanted to push through. Now that we've got her looking like an underwater mermaid, I laid down a good level of toning, and I realized her skin is looking a little drab and flat, and so I try to bring those highlights back in by laying the same green across the painting. Whew. And then we go into the face. This is definitely a part where I cried. I had a mental breakdown painting this face because it's just a face I know very well, and I knew that the face I was painting was not Taylor Swift's face. And so I had put aside an entire Sunday to paint this, and I ended up crashing out at like 2 p.m. in the afternoon and had to just completely stop doing this painting. I ended up finishing the painting throughout the week before and after work, so that way I could make up the time that I missed when I had a mental breakdown. But sometimes you need to take a break. But I feel like it was important to take this break because without taking a step back from a painting that's frustrating you, you can just get caught up in the mess and see it and not see it clearly. And so that's why it's just important to sometimes let things go and accept it how it is without just going too hard into it. Okay, I feel like this is the point when I started actually freaking out about it because I feel like she looks like she has a plastic face with just like a bright red lip, and I feel like it's just, sorry about Ghost also, she's a diva. This is actually where I started crying because I took the good base I had and I feel like I completely ruined it with the color. I feel like I was painting on a mask and it just felt like everything was going wrong. I feel like my entire thing was falling apart. I wanted to quit everything. I was like, what am I working towards if this isn't working? I put so much time into this painting. I put so much time into my channel. I want to be able to put out this video. This is really important to me. And so all those internal pressures just built up and I had to take a break. If you ever want to test your mental stability, try painting Taylor Swift with a deadline. I was actually going to listen to this album on release night, but then I was too tired, set an alarm for midnight and did not wake up. But instead, the cats woke me up at 5 in the morning, and so then I got to listen to it then. First listen through, I wasn't that passionate about it. I felt like it felt hollow and empty, and I felt like some of the lyrics were juvenile. On the first listen around, I was really into Opalite and Canceled, Life of a Showgirl. That was before I feel like I fully adjusted to the sound of the album. And then in the next listen around, I mean, The Fate of Ophelia immediately jumped out at me again because it's like, what were you thinking? Like, this is actually a good song. I've been listening to it all day. I'm enjoying it. Top 3, no particular order, is probably Father Figure, Canceled, and Opalite, but I mean, that is subject to change. See, the thing is, at a certain point, I was relatively happy with the face. I did feel like at a certain point, I was doing literal plastic surgery with her painted face because I don't know, I feel like she just looked so stretched and looked like she had just gotten out of surgery and gotten the biggest facelift, and I was able to get it together. When I had my partner hold my painting far away from me, I realized her face was totally tilted out of whack. And then I had to go in on top of that and fix her face. And then that is just when I was going to pieces. I was like, what am I doing? I also realized halfway through this that I actually wasn't even painting the right picture. I had screenshotted a bunch of images, including one where it's just the album image without the cutouts, and so I've been painting based off of that one, and I didn't realize that the album cover is actually zoomed out. So we get a special edition. Here's a new variant for you collectors out there. Life of the Showgirl, Caroline's version. Here though is where the face starts to get some magic. I feel like I'm finally able to get those tones right. I'm actually shaping her face. I feel like I'm getting to a point where maybe this is Taylor Swift. The face is just really a lot of back and forth on the eyes, on the lips, and the nose, on the mouth, stitching it all together so it actually becomes something recognizable. Here I'm spending time trying to get the direction her eyes are looking correct because I feel like that changes the entire mood of the album, is that she's looking at the camera in a relaxed manner. And so it was a little tricky playing along with that, but eventually I feel like right here, it's funny because if you look at the painting, it kind of looks like Taylor Swift, but without makeup on. And then I go in and paint the eyelashes and it just starts to add that contrast to make her eyes pop. And all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, this is Taylor Swift. But getting the lips to have more contrast and bringing those eyes out, getting the nose, I just feel like starts to bring the painting fully together. Now that I'm finally fucking satisfied with the face, here I'm back to the body and I'm literally just like terrified to get moving forward because I finally finished the face that we cried about and I'm just moving into the body like this. Because I just don't know if I can get this and if I can pull this off. My main focus with the body now is to bring the tones warmer. I feel like they're a little bit too cool for me right now. And then I'm back in the hair. I feel like the hair was a safe space for me because I can really mess that up and no one's gonna notice. The hair is not quite as recognizable as the face. I do a nice little blurring effect with the hair, trying to blend it into the water by getting my brush wet and smearing it a little bit around, and I feel like that ended up working as a great technique. I was planning on going in back on the hair and trying to fix the ends, but when I finished the painting I was like, okay, this is fine. I didn't need to do that kind of work. Ooh, and bringing the part in I feel like just like really brings that together, getting the last little highlights in the hair, and I'm happy with it. Okay, I get the painting to a point where I'm like, there's a few parts that I kind of want to cover up and hate, and I'm brainstorming of how to do these cutouts, and I'm like, wait a minute, what if I just painted and literally cut out the pieces and pasted it on top? I'm really working to create a small little piece that I can cut out and make look cool, and I'm not trying to focus on the details too much. I choose a few different things for what I want to get cut out. I choose her wrist with her bangles. I choose the reflection of the water. I choose the little bust of her bodysuit. I hate the hand situation I have going on the other side, and so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna block it, cover it up. So if that looks weird, no it doesn't, because I covered it up. I'm starting to work in tandem with the block and the pieces of paper that I'm gonna cut because I want those colors to match together. It's a little tricky getting the hand correct on the paper too. I'm working to give it a bit more of a blurred effect and just meshing it with my fingers, making it work. I love going in with the glitter and shine. I love getting the reflection that everyone says was photoshopped, and so now I'm literally painting it, so not photoshopped. I'm kind of going crazy on the bodice, not really caring here. I'm getting to a point in the painting where I just want to be done. I am sick of this. I want it to look good and be finished. Okay, I feel like as I'm creating these cutouts, I'm starting to understand more of what Taylor Swift was trying to achieve when she had these like splits and cutouts throughout all her album covers. I feel like for me, it's the shattering of the glass that, you know, she's put over her life, and she's trying to break free of these expectations of what people want. Here I have my entire painting together. I have all the pieces cut out that I needed cut out, and I actually, for the text, I ended up watercoloring a piece of orange paper and then tracing the letters on, and then using an X-Acto knife to cut out from there. And I feel like creating these cutouts gave me a deeper understanding aesthetically of what's going on here and the scattering of the life of a showgirl words. I feel like, you know, we're everywhere, we're all over the place, and that's not an excuse for the, you know, graphic design atrocities that this album commits, but now that it's in my own piece, maybe I'm defending the atrocities, okay? I have it all laid out here, and I'm then having to go through the careful process of gluing each piece where I want it to be. But putting this together was a little nerve-wracking, but I feel like it all comes together in the end. I hope you enjoyed this little sneak peek behind the curtains for this painting. So here's the final version of my painted Life of the Showgirl. I barely made it out alive, and I feel like Taylor might vaguely recognize herself in this painting, but I consider that a win. If you have a favorite song or lyric from Life of the Showgirl, make sure to comment it down below. Thank you for coming along for the ride. My name's Caroline, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.